All right, I thought it might be fun to make a political compass meme out of SCP groups of interest. Doesn't seem like anyone's done that. It occurred to me it's Sunday. Let's do this thing. So I already got started. Um, the UN's occult, the Global Occult Coalition, kind of a centrist, right wing, authoritarian, NATO-esque entity, right? It's a centrist because, of course, it's got to placate to the political balance to some extent. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Gamers against weed, lower left quadrant, more anarchist than leftist. They like to seed anarchy by giving it anomalous artifacts to leftist groups. So they're leftist sympathizers, but they themselves have a praxis of making SCP video games where you play it, and you get it on the dark web, and you like fucking lose your mind. It's super hot. You like play super hot until you like get sucked into the super hot whatever. Whatever is fun. That's my favorite, by the way. Gamers Against Weed, which is probably ironic, you know. But anyway, the factory makes a lot of anomalous shit that fucks people up with irrevocable harm. Who is behind the factory? Nobody really knows. Maybe it's the Scarlet King. Scarlet King's kind of dated. Like ooh, it's the devil. Maybe it's capitalism itself. I don't know. But I think the factory is definitely ANCAP. The fact that there's no agency that really we've ascribed to the factory in the classic mysterious SCP style, I think fits. This is Division P up here. This is like a former Soviet thing that is sort of like the occult coalition, but for the Ruskies. So I think that makes sense that they're up in the Othcom section. This is the Fifth Church. It's kind of like spookier Scientology in SCP verse. So I thought, since they're anomalous, basically they're on the and mysterious and all that. They're on the and they're called. So they're cultists. So they're authoritarian and more centrist authoritarian, but on the left side because they're anomalous. Um, where so this is all anomalous, and then off right is like, fight anomalies. Kind of. I mean, obviously, with the Russian communists, literal communists up here, I made the exception. So what I reserve the right to do whatever I want here. So let's just keep going. Dr. Wondertainment is kind of an anarchist guy, obviously, and the capitalist, I would say. But he would probably be like he would be like an anarcho, something weird, like he would be a GOS maybe, which is obviously superior to any other ideologies. All right, let's pop this in. There's like a process here. It's kind of annoying. Paste. Right. All right. So I think I would put like Wondertainment kind of here. He's like a small government guy, but he likes having courts, which makes sense. And he reads like Ben Garrison cartoons. Dear College, I haven't read a lot of stuff on them. Was this is sort of the Cthulhu thing? Yeah, let's skip that. Broken God's fun. Let's do that. Church of the Broken God. You got this like SCP Broken God thing. It's kind of mechanical and it like takes scrap onto itself. Kind of a based SCP. So we're gonna copy technical difficulties. All right, Church of the Broken God being a cult, it's authoritarian, anomalous. I see this as sort of maybe like syndicalism or something, but SCP cult, which makes it more authy. But they're one of the more chill SCP culty groups of interest, I think. So I'm gonna put them in there. They're sort of like social democrats essentially in the SCP verse. All right. Chicago Spirit. So this is like Al Capone. These are new. I haven't checked in like 7 months. Okay, chaos insurgency, classic. Um, Obviously they are anarcho insurgents, right? So they're gonna be kind of on the bottom. I'm gonna like clip in and out to load these to skip chaos. All right, chaos I think is maybe they're like Ancon. That's how I when I wrote a film treatment of an SCP movie. Um, I basically, you could argue that because I like personally, I'm very sympathetic to the chaos insurgents, so I feel like I need to stop and just talk about this. Like, we haven't put the foundation in yet. Obviously, the foundation is going to be the center, right? It's like the containment. Instead of these arrows going out, if you just inverted them in the center, that would be the foundation. So when I find the logo, we'll put it in. But so you might think that the chaos insurgency are actually anti-centrists, and it's they might use factory, they like find some factory SCPs and be like, this might kill us, whatever. They're dangerous unknown SCPs. Let's figure out what they do so we can fuck shit up with them, right? So there would be an alliance there. Similar to perhaps anarcho-communists, insurrectionists, buying things from Ancom weapons dealers, for example. And then they might make a deal with the Putin guys over here and get them going, you know. And we haven't figured out who's up here yet. Maybe some like Nazi leftover group or something, right? All right, so let's move on. Boom, saving time on editing, saving your time. Got everything in the screen here. So let's just go through them quickly. So these guys up here are a anomaly aware, kind of creepily cheerful PR firm. So we're gonna put them in the lower right quadrant, but close to the center because they're sort of anomalous. So they're like kind of right leaning centrist moderates here who like capitalism and are also into uh, well, okay, so like if it's on the right or the left doesn't mean it's not anomalous. Like everything's sort of related to anomalies in SCP, right? So actually, I'm gonna put these guys like here. I think is good. Okay, the Japanese occultism group is basically an authoritarian right wing thing. They came out of Imperial Japan. It's the same continuity of governance that got you the successful Japanese Russo War, which pumped them all up, and then you eventually got the invasion of Manchuria, and so on and so on. And then it didn't end well, by the way. So definitely up here, right? Culturally very right wing. The Japanese. Now, of course, by the end of World War II, they're not involved in that politics, right? So you got to average it into this sort of collective capitalism vibe that they have today, and it's like around ish, not fascist ish yet. It's halfway there. Okay. The FBI's UFO SCP's guy, people. So of course the U.S. government is generally in this time also right wing and authoritarian, more so than the modern, UN kind of deal. So let's put them up there. Three Moons Initiative is, well, before we do Three Moons, the Horizon Initiative is people on Earth who are Judeo-Christian Islamic, who are like, SCPs, what's up with that? God help us, blah, blah, blah. So they're sort of right wing theocratic, but they're not totally hardcore. I'm going to put them up here, I think is good. The Three Moons Initiative is more theocratic and more arguably right wing in terms of the whole like protecting humanity shtick. Um, or maybe they're centrists because it's like an afterlife, so they're not culturally as right wing. I don't know. I feel like maybe they could be here because look, there's a literal deity, Jalaka or whatever the fuck it's called, that rules Corbenic. So it is a literal theocracy. So for that reason, I'm pinning it as the extreme. Really, the true opposite of the chaos insurgency, and maybe there could be a weird sort of alliance between them, but whatever. So nobody is a bunch of weird men in black sort of people that have popped up throughout history in the last 50 whatever years, and sometimes they'll show up and help the foundation, and it's like, who are you? And they're like, nobody. And that's creepy, right? Whoa, they're nobody. What does that mean? Well, basically, they are apolitical centrists, so we're gonna put them in the dead center. Um, okay, so now we got the Serpent's Hand. They're kind of like the Chaos Insurgency in that they like finding SCPs and gaining powers from SCPs. They don't like the Foundation status quo. So they're definitely down here, but they're not quite as. They're more esoteric. I would put them like here, approximately. All right. Let's see. Let's run through some of these groups. Who haven't we? By the way, a lot of these are new. It's great that people are making these articles and then getting these into the wiki. I think it's fun. Shark punching also. There's no politics there. It's just a joke. Sarkic cults. Okay, great. So where do you place the Sarkic cults? I don't know. I'm about to find out as I freeform here. So the Sarkic cults definitely have an authoritarian cultish vibe to them, and they're definitely anomalous. They're going to be in the upper left quadrant, right? But they do kind of help save the world in a subset of SCP articles dealing with them. But they're like cannibals, whatever. They're not to be trusted, but they have kind of good intentions. So I think that's makes them like pure far leftists with like a mildly authoritarian bent. Okay. Let's keep going. Prometheus Labs, dedicating to research from the 80s, Political Complex. Um, yeah. Right. So they're basically, oh, I'm playing synergism. They're basically vanilla milk toast, Silicon Valley sort of author, pliable to the authoritarian MilGov complex. But they're really interested in the science, so they're kind of here. They're like the useful idiots of like the Manhattan Project, but for the SCP verse. Okay, are we cool yet? This is a fun one. They're basically anarcho egoists, so unlike the Gamers Against Weed, who are trying to use anomalous game design as a way of making the world more interesting, arguably free. Yes, they kill some people. These are SCPs. They have dangerous side effects. They curse you and things. But, whatever. And the Are We Cool Yet guys are more like, we are going to maybe not blow up the moon. That's not very inventive, but carve, symbols into the moon that activate a thaumaturgic ritual. And everybody who looks, sort of like in Naruto, like everybody who looks into the moon will get brainwashed and trip, and it's part of our art. And then it'll stop, and then nothing will happen. So they'll come up with and that's like on the lighter side. So the Are We Cool Yeah guys, of course, might do something that kills a lot of people and it like threatens the veal and everything just to create a big event, and somehow it's got to be clever and artistic, right? So it's not just wanton killing, I guess. If you write the group well. Okay, let's run through some of these other groups. Parawatch is a bunch of right wing libertarian conspiracy guys. Arguably left wing, like the muckraking journalism aspect. So let's just put them as they're kind of like civil libertarians. Okay. We're almost done. I skipped a few of these. All right, Marshall Carter and Dark. A favorite of mine. Um, so let's see. Um, I'm gonna put them in the lower right. They're more statist because they know how to play the game than obviously. So they're sort of like Hoppian or minarchist. All right, let's keep going. Keep on keeping on. I skipped that. That's like charity fraud. Obviously, you can place that in the center right, on the sort of state-friendly libertarian side. So you skip, you just saved you some time. Who's left? Yeah, the Black Queen. Okay, so the Black Queen is like an anarcha, um, sort of whatever, an anarcha somethingist who is familiar and adjunct to the establishment, but kind of belies the establishment. So I'm gonna put her like here, and then AR. What the frick is that? It's gonna be the top, right? Anderson Robotics. Yeah, that's an easy sort of. They're straddling. They're sort of libertarian capitalists who are straddling the line with propriety over here. Okay, so that's it. Now you've learned something about the SCP verse and political theory.